Hey, friends, thank you for joining me, whether you are here live or watching the replay. I want to spend a few minutes talking about the subject of this week's episode of the Driven Woman podcast, Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast. I was joined by Bev Feldman, who is a email marketing specialist and certified in ConvertKit. We had a very interesting conversation on the podcast about the differences between being a course creator or being an expert. And the reason why I think this is an important distinction is that a lot of what I call the mass marketed advice that's being, on distributed all over the internet, promoted on the internet, is really directed towards people who need and want to grow a huge audience because they are selling like a course. Now, when you sell a course, you are looking for relatively small rates of conversion. So you might need to have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people on your list, which would mean you would be constantly trying to add to the list. And the reason why is at any given time, when you launch or relaunch your course, you're only going to convert a small percentage of them at that time. A lot of the time, people grow these very, very large lists through doing Facebook ads, by placing their course in a bundle, which is being then distributed to all of the lists of all of the people who have contributed to that bundle, through affiliate partnerships, through summits, and a lot of other highly leveraged activities, all of which are meant to grow that list very large. You do not need a huge list if you are not looking at a 1 or 2% conversion rate. So, for example, let's say you are a consultant. Let's say you're a marketing consultant and you specifically work with small businesses, 1 to 5 million annual revenue. You are going to have very different open rates, very different click-through rates, and very different conversion rates than someone who is selling an online course. So wouldn't it also make sense that the size of your list would be different? If you are growing your list to sell a course through Facebook ads, through summits, through JV partnerships, through bundles, and all of those means this is very cold traffic. These are people who sign up for your list because they're probably signing up for lots and lots of lists. And they may be people that are really just signing up to get your freebie or because they like something about your ad. And as soon as they clicked and they got on the list, they went on with the day and they may have even forgotten about you altogether. There's a very high percentage of people who opt in for a freebie and then never even open it. Why? Because we're impulsive, because we see something and we think, oh, this is cool, I want this, and it's free. So we really don't have to give it much thought. And then later, after the impulse is passed, we may not remember that we signed up for it, or we may no longer value it because the little dopamine hit that we got from subscribing has passed. If you are a consultant and you work with businesses, you're not going to need tens of thousands of people on your email list. As a matter of fact, according to my podcast guest, Bev Feldman, you might not even need a list at all. If you have a high-end consulting package, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, you might only need 3 or 4 customers a year. Now, do you need to stay in contact with people? Yes, because at any given time, different people will be ready to take action and hire you. So you do need to remind them of you, and email is a wonderful way to do that. Superior in every way to social media because the algorithms on social media are constantly changing. And even the people who have said they want to hear from you are probably not going to hear from you on social media. Email is a different story. They raised their hand. They said they wanted to hear from you, and they hear from you. Now, they may not open every email, and that's okay. But it's one of the things that you think about in terms of how often you want to reach out to them. I work with coaches, consultants, independent professionals, genuine experts who have taken their offline success into an online business. And one of the things they struggle with almost universally is marketing. Why? Because when you are successful in a small business that's brick and mortar, if it's a store, you get foot traffic. If it's a professional practice, you get referrals. You do good work, people recommend you. You do great work, more people recommend you and refer to you. So you may not have to do any kind of marketing at all. You may just need to do good work and let people know that you have space for more clients or customers. But what works in the offline space isn't going to get you anything in the online space. And it's one of the biggest pain points of legitimate experts, the kind of people I work with, frankly, the kind of person I am. We need to learn how to market ourselves online. But it's a big mistake to invest all of your time, energy, effort, and dollars in marketing yourself online strictly through social media. It's like you're chasing the ambulance, right? And the ambulance is always getting away from you. Excuse me, because the algorithms are always changing. And even as you gain followers, with the algorithm changes, fewer and fewer of your followers are seeing you. And let's face it, when people go to social media, they're not going there by and large to do business with you or with anyone. That's not to say it doesn't happen. It does happen. I have bought a number of things that I was not looking for at the time on TikTok and on Instagram, but not a high-end consulting package, I guarantee you. So how an expert can be using social media, and I'm swinging back to email marketing, how an expert can use social media is just visibility, reminding people who you are and what you do. But that's not where you're going to get your leads, and that's not where you're going to convert clients in general. So getting people off of social media and onto your email list is a strategy that's taught by lots and lots of business coaches. Why it's good is because the algorithm changes may mean that even the people who say they want to hear from you aren't going to hear from you. Once you've got their email address, they will hear from you, at least if they open their emails. Now, what makes an email from an expert worth the open? It's not as easy as it might seem, partially because most of us experts have followed the advice of the web celebs, the internet marketers, the online gurus, who are largely giving advice to course creators, people who will buy their courses, for example. So what worked for them as course creators who had a big ad spend and a lot of affiliates, that's not going to be the right strategy for you and I. Now, should you do no emails at all? I can't tell you one way or the other, but I do think it is worthwhile as a business owner, as a consultant, a coach, a creative, an independent professional, an expert, a solopreneur. I do think it is worthwhile to show up in people's inboxes. It can be super simple. You could literally put a note on your calendar that you need to email your contacts once a month and give them a reason to open it. It could be that simple. The conventional wisdom is you need to email your people every week on the same day, at the same time, and be constantly growing your list. But you might not need that for your business model. If you only serve 3 or 4 high-end consulting clients a year, you might be able to email them once a month. Because if you have 3 or 4 clients already and that's your capacity, You're only emailing them to remind them who you are and what you do. And you might include in that email notification that you are currently full, but you anticipate an opening for a new consulting client in 3 months. And you can include a link to get on the wait list so that 2 months from now, you can schedule a call to see if they're ready and if they want to hire you and book you. Once a month, easy peasy. Now, why are experts struggling so much with email? Well, part of it I've already alluded to, because the advice that we've all, the Kool-Aid that we've drunk is not appropriate for us. We don't understand why we need to churn out an email every week, same day, same time, and be constantly looking for opportunities to grow our list if we only need a handful of clients a month or a year. So what would make the ideal client for you, the kind of person you want to attract, you want to be hired by, you want to work with, and you can create excellent outcomes with? What do they want to know? Well, if you're currently full and have a waiting list, they would want to know that, because maybe the next email they open arrives on a day when they're thinking, you know what, this would be a good time to work with so-and-so. If you're not actually available to serve them immediately, that would be good information. They may need a link to your scheduler to book a consultation call with you, a discovery call, a strategy call. If you have new offers, let's say, for example, you've always offered a certain type of consulting engagement and you now have created a new consulting engagement, but the people on your list haven't heard about it, that would be something to include. If you regularly create content, you have LinkedIn Lives like this one, or a LinkedIn newsletter, or a podcast, or a YouTube channel with regular updates, a blog, you could link to that content, because not everybody is following your podcast. But when they open an email and there is a link to a specific episode of your podcast that they would be interested in, they can access it right then and there. You can also include industry news. Everybody's busy. People are so busy. Our attention spans are getting smaller by the day. And if you are an expert in your field and people on your list seek you out for that expertise, using your emails to curate up-to-the-minute information in your field that would be of interest to the people on your email list, you can include that information. Sometimes it's fun to interview someone who is interesting to people in your field and use a little clip from that interview. Could be text. Depending on your email marketing platform, you might even be able to insert a short video clip. And if they want to see more, you've got the link to your YouTube channel or your website or a private page. The idea is not that you need to do it because the web celebs and the internet gurus and the marketing self-appointed experts tell you to, but because you are an expert, and because that means you can anticipate what the people who are good fit clients for you are interested in, what they need. You begin to anticipate their needs ahead of time, and you can use your email list to bring together information that you create and that you curate, and you're bringing it together in one place that's super easy for them. I'm going to tell you some of the mistakes I've made. Some of the mistakes I've made in email marketing: adhering really, really rigidly to the advice I was given. For example, a couple of years ago, being told that I would grow my email list twice as fast if I sent emails twice a week instead of once a week. No, not to my subscribers. My subscribers felt overwhelmed. Maybe even a couple of them felt harassed by the number of emails they were getting from me. And so a bunch of people unsubscribed. That was a lesson. No matter what advice you get, it should always be an experiment. And that includes anything that you learn from me on these live streams. If you read my blog, you follow my LinkedIn newsletter, you listen to my private podcast, you listen to my public podcast, anything you hear from me anywhere, and you think, oh, this sounds good, I'm going to do this. It depends. It depends. Does it work for your business model? Does it work for where you are in your stage of business? And most importantly, does it work for your potential customers? For example, if your ideal clients are stay-at-home moms with 3 or more children, you are not going to want to have a content-rich, dense email. They don't have time for that. They probably have somebody on their lap and someone crawling up their leg while they're checking their inbox. So that's not going to be helpful. What would be helpful, if that happens to be your customer base? Bullet points and links and some humor and a lot of white space. Anticipating not only what your email subscribers want to hear from you, but the way in which they want to hear it takes you to a whole other level. Every email can't be about promotion, selling, marketing your services. Some should be just, I watched this amazing movie and I want to tell you what I got from it. I saw this funny meme and I just had to share it with you. Give them a reason to look forward to hearing from you. Once opening your emails feels like an obligation, one more task on their to-do list, the relationship is headed south. I have a lot of room for improvement in my email process. And a lot of it was things that I learned from Bev during our interview on the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast. I appreciated the fact that even though she's a ConvertKit specialist, she doesn't always recommend ConvertKit when people come to work with her. Something that she said multiple times on the interview was it depends. And it does depend, which is why the mass marketed cookie cutter advice is not going to help you most of the time. Unless you have the exact kind of business that the person sharing that wisdom, that advice has. But for experts, you need to email them as often as they need to hear from you, whether that's once a week, once a month, or once a quarter. You want to give them the information that is what they want to hear, whether that's 100% content from you or a mixture of content and curation or 100% curation. Something that Bev said is that we need to inject our personality and our values into our emails because it should be a relationship, even if they don't reply. That's something that took me a while to understand, that I'm actually cultivating a relationship with email subscribers, even if they don't respond, even if they don't click. I do have links in every one of my emails, and I do pay attention to which of the links get clicked because I want to know what people are interested in. I want to know what prompted them to take that action. So they don't have to reply, but I love it when they do. And if I want to get more replies, I need to make my emails more engaging. Now, I could see that as a burden. I could see that as an obligation. I could see that as oh God, one more thing I have to do. But I choose to see it as an opportunity. These are people who, for whatever reason, have decided to give me their email address. And they open my emails and want to hear from me. I'm really curious about why that is. I could guess. I could make assumptions, I could jump to conclusions, but I'd much rather know. So, how can you make your emails more interesting for you and for them? Here's a couple of tips. I think it helps us be more consistent when we know that we have several different types of emails to send. Otherwise, it gets boring for you. And if it's boring for you, I promise it's going to be boring for them. So, for example, I have promotional emails, I have engagement emails, and I have information emails. And I created a different template for each one. And I vary them. So if the content is mostly promotional, I use that one. If it's mostly for engagement, I use that one. I think we do need to shake things up on a regular basis, because if it becomes too routine, I think your open rates are going to go down. We need to be offering value, whether that's information, entertainment, discounts, free offers, referrals to other amazing people or products. And we need to do that without an expectation of specific return. When we get obsessed with the growth or lack thereof of our email list, when we get obsessed with our open rates, our click-through rates, our replies, we start feeling burdened. We start feeling resentful. And as you've heard me say before, resentment is a really important emotion to pay attention to and monitor as a business owner. When you're doing something and you resent doing it, that puts you on the path to burnout. When you're doing something because you feel obligated to do it, or because some coach that you worked with insists that it must be done, or some course you took, it's not a good enough reason because you think you have to do it. And I'm pretty sure if you're doing something because you think you have to do it, because someone told you it's the way things are done, and you resent it, you will not be infusing those emails with personality, creativity, and value. You just can't. Energetically, you'll be out of alignment with those things. So if you need to take a break from your email for a minute so that you can come back to the drawing board, you can think about what would make this fun, what would make these more engaging, and ask, what would you like to hear more of? What would you like to hear less of? You may not get many people who tell you, but you can certainly engage with those who do. The bottom line is there are no hard and fast rules for anything in business. And wasn't the freedom and the flexibility to do things our way a big part of the attraction to starting our own business? And then sometimes we forget that. You can do email your way. You might be the person who only emails on Sundays. You may be the person who only sends emails with bullet points and links. You may be the person who emails your list all the time, but your emails are always just a couple of sentences. You can literally do any of those ideas or many, many other ideas that I haven't mentioned. The way to make it sustainable is by focusing on the recipient, by infusing your personality, by looking for ways to have a relationship with your subscribers, and by asking them what they want. And none of this requires a huge list. You can have a small but mighty list that keeps your dance card full and your revenue stream positive. So I hope this was helpful. If you have not yet listened to the interview with my guest, Bev Feldman, on this week's episode of the Driven Woman Entrepreneur Podcast, I invite you to do so. It was a fun conversation, and here's something to make it even more fun. Count how many times Bev says it depends. That is the mark of a true expert, in my opinion, but you're going to have to listen to the episode to find out why. Thanks for joining me, friends. I'll be back right here in 1 week.